Good morning, Manna Church. Ben Goodman here. Welcome to part 2 of this week's series called Equipped for Battle. As I mentioned yesterday, following Jesus is often challenging because we experience many kinds of spiritual battles. God's plan is to equip us to fight and to win these battles, and to fight and win them His way. He equips us by directing us to embrace certain foundational biblical practices. These practices I call keepers. In a moment, you'll see why. The first keeper I want to share is this: keep proper alignment. In the midst of many of our battles, it's important to first make sure you're in proper alignment with God. James chapter 4, verse 7 directs us to submit ourselves to God, resist the enemy, and he will flee from you. In other words, we report for duty before we engage the battle. We get perspective and instruction from God before we fight. Then we resist the enemy and he will flee. When it comes to winning battles, King David was pretty successful. Why? Because he always inquired first of the Lord. He chose to properly align himself first with God before he acted. And then he worked God's battle plan, not his own. We can learn from David's example. Another way to keep proper alignment is to remind yourself of who owns you. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 through 20 states, "You are not your own. You were bought with a price." Many of us live as if we own our own lives, as if we get to decide the purposes and plans and paths that are best for us. A lot of the battles we experience are due to our forgetting that as Christians, we are not our own. We are purchased and owned by God. We often lead our lives in contexts and for purposes for which we're not designed. As a result, we run into trouble. We experience struggles and battles. In the middle of those battles, it's always good to check our alignment. It's always good to first submit to God, report for duty. It's always good to remind ourselves we are not our own, we are His. Being properly aligned in this way puts us in a great position to depend on God, follow His leading, and experience greater victories in our battles. It's important to keep properly aligned with God. Join me tomorrow when we explore yet another important keeper. See you then.